Hi, iOS Nation. This is Georgia from Tippy.com, and welcome to our weekly podcast focused on everything iPad, from news and how-tos to app and accessory reviews. This is iPad Live.
iPad Live is brought to you by the Tippy iPad Accessory Store, your one-stop shop for the latest in iPad cases, cables, chargers, headsets, and much, much more. Visit store.tippy.com for all your iPad accessory needs. See you there.
It's Wednesday, October 19th, and joining us tonight is the co-host of Iterate TV, CIO of Nickelfish. I got the t-shirt, Seth Clifford.
Hey, Georgia. How's it going?
Hey, Seth. It's good. I'm wearing the t-shirt.
Oh, you're wearing it.
I got it on.
That's very exciting.
It is. I was so stoked to get to wear it today. Yes,
I'm glad
we
you
got
like
to meet Seth and his Nickelfish crew when he came down to Montreal.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was really stoked about it. That was great. And yes, Seth is as sweet in person as he is on the podcast.
That's very nice of you to say.
Can pay me later.
All right.
Also joining us is my co-host on iPhone Live and Zen and Tech TV, the managing editor of Tippy.com, Rene Ritchie.
How's it going, Georgia?
It's going really well. Now, what shirt are you wearing?
I am also wearing my Blowing Mimes since Blowing Minds, not mimes, sorry, since
Easy.
2002.
Oh my God.
I misread. It's hard to read upside down.
Mimes?
It's hard to read upside down.
Yes, that's our current shirt. It says Blowing Minds since 2002. A slogan I came up with very quickly during a half-witted conversation one day.
It was an entirely sober conversation, despite rumors to the contrary, wasn't it?
It was in the middle of the day. Okay. Come on, give me a break.
That means very little, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so Georgia and I are both decked out in the latest in Nickelfish couture.
Yeah, representing.
You Nickelfishes are damn good people, if I can say that. You were enjoyable to the last, both you, Justin, and Dave. Excellent folks.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun being up there, and you were a fantastic host.
I think they should have got you guys on stage at Singleton, because the wealth of information you were sharing in the hallways and at the tables was just stupefying. I was like, now Seth knows this much? I got to get him to say it on the show!
Yeah, you got to really drag it out of me.
And that Justin is real wallflower.
Yeah, he is. Oh, it's funny you should say that, because we always bust on him for talking so much, so he had a chance to kind of recede into the scenery.
Well, it was so nice. He really just makes sure that everyone's involved, and I thought that was very sweet.
Yeah, he's definitely a great captain, no doubt.
Well, keep him? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, Rene?
Seth's going to keep him? Is that what he's saying?
For now.
Well, he's married to my sister, so I guess I kind of have to.
No wonder. Insurance.
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, George.
Now, we've been doing things a little bit differently. So, Sunday, I was not there, but you guys did a iPhone 4S Live.
Yeah, you were absent. You were absent without leave, so Seth and I took over. We invited Leanna and Matthew Panzerino from the Next Web on, and we did iPhone 4S Live!
And how did it go?
I think it went great. I mean, we talked about the new phone. We had Siri actually open the show for us. It actually wasn't Siri. It was the I don't care voice from Extra Normal, but they are identical, so it kind of came off as being Siri. And then we talked about the new phone, which Seth actually has now, but he can't talk about because it's the wrong show.
I do, yeah. I got it. Got him on Monday.
Well, I have to say, I had so much fun with Siri, especially changing Rene's name.
Wait, save it for Sunday. Teaser.
Fair enough. Anyways, I messed with Rene using Siri, and it was exceptionally fun.
It wasn't hard, though, to mess with me, apparently. Even an artificially intelligent robot can do it.
Right. So send in all your Siri jokes. We'll be working them.
Yep.
We also have a new set of posts that we've been doing now, which is Tippy celebrity posts. So celebrity sightings for people that are using iPhones, iPods, and iPads. And we have the sightings up for October 17th.
We have Michelle doing it. She's been doing them for Crackberry for a while, and people kept complaining, how come Crackberry gets all the celebrity sightings? I almost always only see celebrities with iPhones. Get on it. So we said, okay, Michelle, do it for us too.
Yeah, it's just cute to see. Now, you have to see the picture of, I believe it's Lenny Kravitz, and what he is actually using. So take a look at that, because I'm so asking them to review one, because it was like super sweet.
No, was he pulling a Blake Lively on us?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sure. Because I know Chris was trying to slide to unlock for half a day on that post, and I don't want to repeat of that.
Yeah, I heard he got like the rug burn, finger burn.
Yeah,
from that.
His oleophobic screen is no longer oleophobic.
It's got one area where you just you can't rub anymore. Anyways,
Michelle in the chat room is now accusing us of improper conduct, so we have to apologize.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Anyways, take a look. We're going to see if we can get one up to review, because super sweet. Take a look.
Okay.
We also have, Apple retail stores were closed, Rene, for 3 hours. What exactly was that for? And what was the reaction of everyone?
So Apple previously announced that they were going to be closing. Well, Apple was going to have a private ceremony to celebrate Steve Jobs' life, the late Steve Jobs, their co-founder, who passed away, I think exactly 2 weeks ago today. And because they wanted to include Apple Retail is a huge part of Apple's staff. They had all the stores closed. We thought originally for an hour, but it turns out it was for 3 hours. And it's kind of weird talking about it because it was supposed to be a private service, but enough stuff has leaked out. I mean, CBS had a helicopter above there. I think it was CBS or CNET or someone had a helicopter above there. So they had Tim Cook speaking, and they had Bill Campbell from the board of directors, Al Gore, former vice president of the United States, Norah Jones sang several times, Johnny Ive spoke, Coldplay sang, and I think they ended with You Got a Friend in Me. And apparently everyone who was there, I think it was just they also had Steve Jobs doing, We Are the Crazy Ones, which we played in our special Steve Jobs tribute show as part of it. So it sounded like it was a really good ceremony and really important to the Apple folks.
Yeah, there's been a lot to, speak about and talk about, and people are still in a great sense of mourning over Steve leaving everyone. So it's nice that they have this and the memorial as well, in which friends and family and everyone else could kind of pay tribute to him.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure, Seth, 2 weeks later, how I'd still be feeling about it, but we got such an outpouring of mail and tweets. People are still tweeting us about the iPad Live Requiem show that we did. So obviously it really resonated, especially in our community and our readership. So I'm glad that, Apple took the time to kind of cap this off for themselves.
Yeah, I think it was probably a nice thing to do for everybody, because the funeral and everything was very private, as the family wanted. So it was nice to do something kind of for the rest of Apple and, for everybody else. And I guess it provides a nice point of closure for people. And, it's like you said, it's surprising that people are still reacting to that show. But yeah, I guess sometimes it takes a little while to sink in, and sometimes it kind of comes back up again and goes back down. So I guess it'll be a while before we've kind of completely moved on. It still seems very fresh.
If you haven't yet, listen to Georgia's Zen and Tech show that we did right after Requiem. It was a fantastic show, and she actually explains why we feel those emotions and how we can deal with them. I thought it was an excellent episode, George.
Yeah, it was fitting, especially since, we were dealing with so much mourning. So it's hard to say goodbye to someone who's brought you so much. And Seth, did you read about how Steve had worked on Apple's next product all the way up until the day before his passing?
I didn't actually. I've been a little bit busy. Why don't you bring me up to speed on that?
Well, it seems kind of fit. Like, it's not actually that shocking when you know his personality type that he would, but um, yeah, it's amazing that he would work up until that, like, up until the end. He was still working on making Apple the best that it could and making sure that everything was in place. I'm sure that a lot of his time was spent with family and everything else, and they would like to keep everything that is that private.
Can I read the quote? Because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, please, Rene.
This is from SoftBank, which is Apple's iPhone carrier in Japan. It's from their CEO, Masayoshi-san. Well, san just means Mr., so their CEO, Masayoshi. And he was at Apple with Tim Cook during the iPhone 4S announcement, which was the day before Steve Jobs' passing. And he said, I visited Apple for the announcement of the iPhone 4S at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, California. When I was having a meeting with Tim Cook, he said, oh, Masa, sorry, I have to quit our meeting. I said, where are you going? He said, my boss is calling me. Which I think is very poignant because by then Tim Cook was already CEO, but Steve Jobs was still his boss.
Yeah, perfectly fitting.
The other one that was really cool was the story that came out this week, Seth, about Apple trying to buy Dropbox and and the meeting Steve Jobs had with Houston from Dropbox.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. That was on Forbes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people had said that for a long time that Apple should buy Dropbox, and I guess I personally thought they probably at some point had to at least consider it, just based on both the popularity of it and the tight integration with the OS and then later on with iOS. It's funny to see this come out now, just especially because of the way it all went down. And I know that personally as well, I would not have really. I guess I would have been all right with it, but I'm kind of glad they didn't buy Dropbox because I like the fact that it remains its own kind of entity and you can use it away from Apple platforms as well because I find it really useful in that way. But the story itself is great. It's just absolutely great. A great interaction with Steve and probably a legendary showdown of wits at some point, I'm imagining.
Well, he said that they were a feature, not a product. And then at WWDC, Apple revealed iCloud. Which I guess kind of took the slack out of that market. I mean, it doesn't do what Dropbox does, but it's kind of an Apple approach to the same thing. So I like the fact that Apple didn't buy them because now we have, we can use Dropbox for all the things that Dropbox is great in and let iCloud do the kind of things that iCloud is good at.
Yeah, definitely.
Why did the deal not go through, Rene?
Dropbox did not want to be sold. There's people who want to. It was Will Shipley did a great article about the difference between farmers and miners. And farmers want to spend time year after year tilling the soil and growing something and making a great product. And miners want to extract value and sell it as fast as they can. So some people start a company just to get sold to Google or to Apple or to Microsoft. And other people really want to make their own company. They want to be the next Google or Apple or Microsoft. And Dropbox sounds like they're one of those companies. Either they're just very smart strategically and are waiting for a bigger price, or they really want to make Dropbox into a great sustainable company for a long time to come.
I would assume that also just it comes down to, as Red Shirt from the chat room mentions, is that it comes down to the numbers, the amount of money that Dropbox thought that they were worth in comparison to what Apple thought that they would be.
9 figures is a lot of money, especially.
Yeah, it is.
That's a lot. That's stupid money. I'm buying a small island money. It's not as much as Apple has, but it's a lot of money.
Well, either way, we have both, so.
Yeah, I'm glad we have both because I use both for very different purposes.
Yeah, my segue was just totally wasted on you people.
So sorry. Talking about numbers, we also have the Apple Q4 2011 numbers that are out today. And Seth, is Apple doing okay?
I don't know. I'm kind of worried about them. How many bazillions of dollars did they clear this time? I lost count after the millions of billions.
But they didn't.
Well, let's Rene.
They didn't meet. So Apple puts out guidance, and Apple usually puts out very conservative guidance, and then Wall Street puts out the numbers they're expecting. And Apple beat their own guidance, but they did not meet Wall Street's expectations. And it turns out that Wall Street's expectations are kind of Apple's obligation because they are getting hammered in after-hours trading. Their stock was down. I don't think it'll be down for long, but the iPhone did not perform. Apple blamed that on the transition. Everyone was waiting for the new iPhone to come out, but the iPad did spectacularly well. There was 11.12 million iPads sold, and Apple made 6.62 billion in Q4 profit, which brought their money chest up to 81.6 billion, which I believe is enough not only to buy a small moon, but also an Imperial battle station if you're in the market.
So what is the difference between what Wall Street expected and what they actually came up with?
I think Wall Street types wanted about 20 million iPhones sold. Usually Apple dips in the third quarter, not the fourth quarter, because the iPhone usually comes out earlier. But the expectations are just that. They're expectations. This was the first time since 2002 that Apple hasn't met those, by the way, or blown past them. So it was interesting. But what's also interesting is that Tim Cook and Peter Oppenheimer uncharacteristically said that next quarter is going to be a record breaker. Usually they're incredibly conservative and tight-lipped, but they kept saying that you ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, everyone that knows anything about Apple, these numbers don't deal with the new iPhone 4S, which did quite well.
Yeah.
So, if you knew anything that Apple was going to come out with a new phone and you needed a new phone, most people, as even we said to people to do, would be waiting for it. And that's probably one of the reasons why there's a huge dip in the amount of iPhones sold.
What I thought was interesting, Seth, and tell me why I'm the only one who thinks this is interesting, but the analysts kept asking Apple if the iPad was cannibalizing the Mac. And Apple said yes, it does cannibalize the Mac, but they believe it cannibalizes low-end Windows PCs more. But when you look at the numbers, they only sold 6-point-something million iPods, which is way down from the 9 million last quarter. And 50% of those are iPod Touch, so about 3 million iPod Touch. And the iPod Touch used to be a far bigger part of Apple's iOS pie. And it seems to me, if anything, the iPad is cannibalizing the iPod Touch for some people. Or at least the iPhone and the iPad are.
Yeah, I would say it would probably be more the iPhone because, again, it does both. So besides the fact that, for size, but, you usually have your phone with you, so you don't really need to carry your music that is also on your, say, Nano, though.
I thought for kids, though, because kids used to be the ones who got the iPod Touch, people who were too young for the iPhone, and now kids are increasingly getting iPads because they're bigger and easier to use.
Yeah, I can see that.
So you think that more people... Sorry, so you think that more people you think that the iPad is cannibalizing the iPod sales?
I think so.
I don't see a problem with that, only because if it's cannibalizing iPod sales, the iPad is a higher value product anyway for Apple. So if they're selling more of those and it does all the stuff that the iPod Touch does and it costs more, it kind of doesn't really matter. And basically, if they're splitting the iPod Touch market away into the iPad and potentially the iPhone in the future, I mean, that's probably even less of a concern because iPhone lock-in, especially with carriers and stuff like that, is really pronounced. So if it is destroying in some slow way the iPod Touch market, I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's still a very solid market for the iPod Touch for people who either have an iPad and also want that and have another kind of smartphone, or just don't want an iPad for some reason, or just want an iPod Touch. So I think that the rest of the iPods might have to worry a little bit more because they seem to be becoming more and more niche products as time goes on. But just to kind of circle back and talk about Wall Street for a second, it boggles my mind that they can be so completely critical of this earnings call when the rest of the country is in a complete tailspin, that I have to laugh because Apple still has such a high value as a company, but people are selling their stock, like they're getting rid of it. Like, what sense does that make? You you don't honestly think that it's going to completely bounce back. The last time it dipped was what, 2 weeks ago?
Well,
And the next day it was up again.
I thought the interesting thing is that some people were slamming them for the Apple retail numbers because Apple retail only grew 1% despite Apple, opening a bunch of new stores and doing a lot of other things. But we are in absolutely the worst retail market since the Great Depression, and to grow 1%, especially in international markets, they're growing way beyond that, I think is semi-phenomenal. I don't know that many retail operations that are still positive. So I think overall it was, I don't want to say the priorities were interesting for the market makers, but the way the conversation was framed was interesting.
Yeah.
Back to the music and if the, between what you were saying, Seth, between the iPad and the iPod, I guess it would really depend on how you listen to your music. Because if you're going to be listening to it for exercising or going out, the iPad is probably not the best of tools to do that just because of its size. So if you do it a lot for training, I would see that the iPhone or the Nano would probably be better off for that. If you listen to your music at home, then it would be whatever is closest.
Oh, yeah. No, there's definitely still markets for those smaller devices, just for what you said. People exercising, people who need a lot more mobility, and people who maybe just love the Nano because now it's like, a sweet watch and a little kind of Dick Tracy thing. So that's not going away. But, to worry that the iPad itself is cannibalizing these other things, like, I don't see any reason to worry about it. It's not like Apple's going to suddenly stop releasing new products. Like, something's always going to cannibalize something else. That's the progression of time as devices come out. So to focus on it and worry about it seems a little bit early.
The other stuff that was interesting is the iPad is now available in 90 countries. 52% of the Global 500 is now deploying iPads, and I forgot to look up the number. But the thing that goes beyond the numbers, the thing that usually kills me, not kills me, I think that usually makes me happy in an interested sort of way about these things, are the statements that come in the conference call later. And Tim Cook was kind of not all over the place. The questions were kind of all over the place. We already talked about him saying that the iPad is cannibalizing PCs. He took his usual kind of offhand remarks about Android and other devices. Was there anything that stood out at you guys? Anything that you thought was odd or unusual about Cook's statements?
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really hear the earnings call. I was kind of in the middle of stuff, so I'm not going to be able to accurately weigh in. So I'm going to toss it to Georgia.
Well, no, not really. I think that the most important thing is that I think that he did really well for right at, like, this is the first call that he took after Steve Jobs passed away, and he handled it really well. And, though Apple's earnings are not, I guess, up to Wall Street standards, they're really, really fabulous. So I think that a lot of people are really worried, or were really worried, with what would happen in the days after, after Steve Jobs, because he is such an icon. And I think that he did really well.
He was asked about, they said, now that there's a new CEO, are you going to give dividends back to the shareholders or something else? And he kind of just said that he was not religious about holding on to cash. He's religious about a lot of things, but he's not religious about that, which I think maybe gives the investors a little bit of hope. But he also made it clear that Apple's going to keep using that money, that massive money, to pre-purchase supplies, to do things like building their new headquarters, to invest in things like the server farm. I think you're right, George. I think it was a really interesting call.
He was asked, interestingly, about the Kindle and about price markets. And we had spoken about how, the best way to answer a question that's a difficult question is not to answer the question.
Repeat and then change the subject.
Exactly. And the way that he handled it, the question was Amazon with Kindle Fire, lower price points, limited features, hybrid market. And he said, outstanding iPad quarter, 11 million, same time setting Mac record, phenomenal. Seems several competitors try and compete with the iPad, different form factors, price points. Reasonable to say none, thus far have gained traction. In fact, iPad share went up. June quarter IDC 3/4 tablets were Apple.
Yeah,
Assess this
3/4.
thing. Sorry, 3/4. Look at the iOS 5, iCloud, iTunes, App Store, blah, 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 blah. 140K native apps for the iPad. And in the end, he says he feels very comfortable with the ability to compete.
We're dominating, Jerry!
That's it. He pretty much said, though he did say, thus far,
Yeah.
none have gained traction, which speaks that, there could be something different. And I think, Seth, you spoke a lot about the price point being a big deal with Kindle. And Kindle people are really excited.
Interesting to me, and I didn't put it in the show notes, it just sprang to mind, is that we've been getting some email from iPad owners who've got iOS 5, and they feel like they didn't get quite as much love as the iPhone did with iOS 5. I mean, previously we've seen the other way around. We figured like iPad has maybe gotten some features earlier and some features later. I guess if you put it next to the iPhone 4S, it doesn't have Siri, it doesn't have some of the other things, but I think the iPad on iOS 5 is a pretty fantastic update. I mean, it's almost like having a new iPad.
Well, I would be upset. Again, for me, Siri is a huge deal, so I'm a little bit upset about the Siri statement. Seth, what's up with Siri not being on the iPad?
I don't know. I mean, you could make the argument that it's a different kind of device, and people don't always have the iPad the way that they have the iPhone, and obviously that doesn't apply to everybody, but you could make that argument. And as such, Siri doesn't play into that kind of lifestyle with the iPad, but I think we can all agree that it would be pretty awesome to have it on there, and that it would just make sense to a lot of people, that it's just another way to do that. And especially now with, all the iCloud integration, leaving reminders, setting up calendar appointments, things like that, it doesn't matter where you do it. It's going to happen, and it's going to go everywhere anyway. So I'm holding out hope that we will see Siri on the iPad, because it's really, really cool, and I think would be very useful. But at the same time, I can understand why they might kind of approach it with hesitation, or just kind of want to have a different experience, or maybe even at this point just want to keep it on the phone to differentiate the phone as the only place where you can get this experience.
Can I give you guys a multiple choice and you can tell me which one you think is true?
Sure.
All right.
Why is Siri not on the iPad 2 or iPhone 4? Because we know, thanks to jailbreakers, that it kind of works okay on those. Reason number one, because Apple wants to make the iPhone 4S more attractive and give it an exclusive feature so people will buy it. Reason number two, because they have a license with Nuance per device, and they don't want to spend the money for licensing it for all those other devices yet. Number three, because for some reason there's a special chipset in the iPhone 4S that handles processing or microphone or something differently than the other devices. Reason number five, and by the way I phrase this, you'll see what I'm leaning towards, because just the small amount of iPhone 4S users managed to completely bring Siri to its knees several times over the weekend, because it's still in beta, and the idea of 20 million iPad 2 or iPad users and iPhone 4 users would absolutely make it explode if they put it on all devices all at once. Or all of the above.
Go ahead, Seth.
I think that any one of those things could definitely play a part. I have no idea what kind of licensing they have with Nuance, so I'm not even going to get into that. But it would, I mean, they have so many of these devices in the market. I find it hard to believe that they would have to pay a per device license, but maybe that's how they do it, and they want to kind of mitigate that cost. I definitely see some validity in the idea that having too many of these devices with Siri all at once could absolutely destroy the network stuff for everyone, and as such, Siri becomes a huge failure because everyone is using it, hence no one can use it. So I think that definitely plays a part in it. And going back to what I said earlier, I think it's a differentiation point for the iPhone 4S. I don't know about chipsets and how much the iPhone 4S differs, and if it has something special that the iPhone 4 doesn't, which makes Siri work better, because obviously the jailbreakers are working on getting it on the 4. But I think between product differentiation, a really, really good, and I say really, really good, honestly, knowing that, yes, the servers were pounded this weekend, but ultimately that's going to, that load is going to balance and things are going to be normal at some point. I think between the product differentiation and the experience that Apple wants people to have, I think that's probably good enough in my mind to reason that out. I don't know about the licensing, I don't know about the cost, and I certainly don't know about the hardware, but that's enough for me to make that argument.
I think that, I agree with you, Seth. I think that with the differentiation, I think that they're going to sell more iPhones if Siri is only on the iPad, on the iPhone. I think also that you're right, Rene, that it would be, with a launch happening like that, and they want to make sure that I think that the server is an issue, but more for the fact that they want to have the experience that people have with the iPhone 4 to be a really comfortable and happy one, and they don't want to have a whole bunch of outages during this launch, knowing that a whole bunch of people are buying the phone and are going to go Siri crazy. So they want to make sure of that. And I think that it's also a lot of iPads don't have, and I think that someone in the chat room actually mentioned it, I'm sorry, it's zoomed past, but that, if you're on Wi-Fi and then you're going to 3G and you don't have data, you're going to have an uncomfortably unhappy experience with Siri, and that would cause a lot of bad press. And they don't need that with the launch of a new product as well. So I think that was a really good point.
Might have been Justin, he's a smart guy.
Yes.
No, Gandhi Master in the chat said,
he's a smart guy too.
On a Wi-Fi only iPad, if you don't have Wi-Fi, you have no Siri. And think about how successful the launch of this phone was. They completely blew past their sales records in every possible way. Imagine if the phone came out and everybody bought them, but then the story was actually, the thing that sold all the phones doesn't even work.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's antenna all over again.
Exactly. It would be silly. So I can see a lot of those things kind of coming together to make that decision, but experience has to play into that.
I spent most...
And it's one more reason why, and I would assume that it'll come out before the third iPad, but another reason why we would purchase the third iPad.
Yeah, if it has that. But the third iPad also wouldn't have a persistent internet connection because you presumably could buy a Wi-Fi one only. So that's actually really interesting about Siri, because you'd step away from Wi-Fi and you'd try to reach it and you'd realize it's broken and you would just get mad. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how they'll get around that, but I would assume that they will definitely have Siri on the third iPad.
Well, you know what? They never put voice control on the iPad. They had voice control since the iPhone 3GS, and it wasn't on the original iPad, and it wasn't on iPad 2. And that was just, now cruddy little voice control. So it did get a lot of stuff. I mean, we did an iOS 5 for iPhone and iPad walkthrough. And for example, we got the multitasking gestures, which those dumb iPhones didn't get because their tiny little screens and their shaved down fingers can't handle multitasking gestures. But I started using those with the beta. And I know some developers like Graham from Glasshouse Apps almost never touch the home button anymore. It's just so easy to squeeze and swipe and move around. I think they're a really good addition. I think it makes the iPad almost like a higher level device for me somehow.
Yeah, this is an amazing walkthrough, by the way, Rene. You really covered absolutely everything that you would want. Plus, you also have the links for all the other previous walkthroughs. So if you haven't actually taken a look at what your phone can do, or you've just purchased a phone and you want to know, or you've just gotten upgraded, it's really great to take a look and see what your phone can do so you're able to utilize it as best as possible.
And the interesting thing is we're still finding more stuff and we're still putting up more how-tos, and we'll get to those in a minute, but there's stuff like it'll text expand for you. You program it so you type in, for example, G and it'll just write Georgia, or you BRB, it'll turn it to be right back for you. So you can do all these. There's just so many little things that they added to almost every app. Like you get a year view now on the iPad calendar, and it shows a heat index. Like the days that are really busy are red, and the ones that aren't very busy at all are empty or white. And you can, in a glance, get a feel for how your weeks and months are panning out. Almost every app, the music app, completely new interface. There's just so much in there. Check out that walkthrough.
And the multitasking gestures for the iPad.
Yeah, there's so much in there. It's crazy. And we just before this show, we put up our top 5 iOS apps that are, have special features for iOS 5. Little, like whether it's little or big things like Twitter integration or a newsstand integration or any of a bunch of different stuff, just head on over there and take a look, because like real racing now, AirPlay mirroring on iPad 2, it's active, Georgia. You can actually take 4 iPads or you can mix them with iPhones, and me, you, and Seth could race all on the same big screen TV.
Which is awesome.
Hey, quick question. I have the review, which of course is awesome and exhaustive in the best ways. I haven't finished it yet. I've been kind of reading it piece by piece.
It is really long.
Can you just what did you just say about the calendar and the heat to show you when things are happening?
Click on year. You have a year view now on don't click, tap on it. If you go to your calendar app on the iPad, you tap on year and it gives you a year view with a heat index.
Oh, right. Okay, I thought you said something about the iPhone. Yeah, I did know that. Okay.
Yeah, it is jam-packed, and like I said, we're still finding stuff because Apple does not document this stuff. They leave it to you to find out on your own, or they'll read the blogs like Tip before. So that's why we're here.
Right. Now, we had a Tippy Asks for how you handle iCloud in your family. Seth, how are you handling iCloud, by the way? Do you both have the same account?
No, we don't. I had said on earlier shows that I was going to not really go all in on iCloud because I had other things set up, and
you mocked it.
I didn't mock it. I said I had other things in mind.
You said it fi.
Don't get iCloud and I in a fight, all right? I don't need that. No, I decided to kind of go all in. I flipped all those switches. I moved mail and everything over there. I've been using reminders and just everything. So I'm all in on the phone. I still have Dropbox. I still have my Google apps and stuff like that I'm using. But in terms of like personal stuff, calendars, personal calendars, not work calendars, and all that other little ephemera and backing up and all that, I'm all in. I just want to see how the experience goes, and if it doesn't work, I can always back out. As far as my wife, she got the new phone. I bought her the new phone. She's very excited. I updated her laptop to Lion yesterday, wiped the whole thing, clean install, put all her stuff back as perfectly as possible, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but if anything is out of place on your spouse's system after you touch it, it's a really big problem.
Yes.
So everything went back, and she's all hooked up now the same way, the backup, the photo stream, everything. Needless to say, I'm very excited and kind of trying to tell her about it. And she's like, that's nice. I'm going to just use my phone. Thank you. And she's not really getting it all yet. So it'll take a little while. But now that it's all set up, I'm actually feeling really good, because everything is kind of in my mind, very concise. These 2 accounts, she has her own, I have my own.
You have your own photo stream, she has her own photo stream.
Yeah. Because I figured I wanted her to have her phone backup and her stuff in one place and my stuff in another place, because I know I'm going to be messing around with it. And
God help you if something goes wrong.
Exactly. If I'm messing around and something goes screwy on her side, I'll never hear the end of it. So I was like, nope, you're going to get your own. This is cool. I'm going to set you up. And it's cool. Like I'm feeling really good about the whole thing, because it seems very neatly organized. And like after a restore, it's now one login and all those switches flipped and boom, everything's so back.
Nice. And you can still share calendars with your wife.
Oh yeah, we're definitely doing that. We each have a personal calendar and we have a shared calendar that we both add to as things come up. And that was the first thing I did actually, was turn on one of those sharing things, and it is seamless. It's great.
And that's what a lot of people in the chat room said as well, that they like to have a separate account for their wives, separate account, wife, for their kids.
For their wives. That's a lot of iCloud accounts in certain areas.
For mail, contacts, photo streams.
My harem all has separate accounts.
And things that they enjoy together, such as iTunes, they do so to share. So that personal information could be separate, and you can still share purchases that you've made and not have any worry. And actually, we got, while we were traveling, a message on our phone saying, oh, someone's downloaded a song. Do you want to share that? Do you want to turn on sharing in order to have access to this, which was kind of neat.
Yeah, so Seth, do you actually share an iTunes account with your wife, though, or is your iTunes account separate, too?
No, she has her own iTunes account because she's had it for a long time, since before I met her. But all of the apps and stuff are in mine, because I buy a lot of stuff for work and all kinds of stuff for testing. Yeah. So I manage all that stuff, and I just log into my store account on her phone, And then like on her laptop, she's got her own Apple ID for iTunes Music and whatever else she needs.
I believe for apps, you can still log in and log out of the App Store and download apps on multiple accounts. But because they have new iTunes in the cloud, which lets you do for music what you could do for apps, if you try to switch accounts, it says, okay, you've switched accounts, but you can't switch accounts again for 90 days. Which means that you can't just like go to your friend's house, log into his account, download all his music, go to your other friend's house, download all her music, which I guess is fairly reasonable because you don't want to turn it into piracy in the cloud.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because, I mean, realistically, it's probably going to be, you know, two people, like a husband and a wife, for instance, that would probably use it that way. Again, I'm obviously not accounting for every possible edge case, so please don't
email
give
him.
me... Yeah, don't, please. I get it. But yeah, I mean, that's fair, right? That makes sense that you've got one or two people that you might want to do this with, and you're not going to run around and log into everybody's stuff.
Who has the time? What about you, Georgia? How are you? I know you're very siloed. Like you like to have your stuff and not have it contaminated by other people's stuff. Is that going to be your iCloud approach too?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see. I'm again a little bit more tentative.
Because you're also cheap, so you might want to keep the combined app thing, I'm guessing. Well, these conflicting interests, privacy, cheapness, you know, you got.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yes, harsh, but it's true.
You said it on the show.
Perhaps. No, it's absolutely true. I like to have the privacy, but yeah, it's nice to have access to everyone else's songs, even though, you know, someone might be completely into, say,
bluegrass,
something I'm not. Yeah, jazz,
opera,
not really my thing. But it's nice to have access to all the other things that are going, and it's nice to have, you know, if everything's lost, it's already there. I don't have to worry. The photos and everything else that I always get so sad that are suddenly disappeared are going to be there. So I'm slightly in. So I think that for music and other things, I'm good for apps. That seems fine. Pictures, I'm a little bit more queasy about having photos up on the iCloud.
Well, you've also said that you're a prodigious, like you photograph everything. I can imagine your poor husband trying to go and look for a picture of something and have 1 million pictures of sunsets suddenly flooding through his stream. I
do. I go photo crazy. Like I will actually take pictures and or screenshots of everything. I do a different color on my nails. I photograph it. I actually have probably 80 different pictures of different types of nail polish or styles that I've done or hairstyles.
So does Seth. We don't take this. No, just kidding.
Yeah, totally.
So if I see something cool, I'm taking a photo of it. I saw the Google, it wasn't the van, it was actually the Google car. I'm like, I'm taking a photo of a Google car because I thought that was kind of ironic and funny.
And your husband's like, I can't find the kids anymore. It's just nails and Google cars and
and sunsets and flowers and some strange bug or car or dog.
No, that's a legitimate concern because you know the photo stream right now is kind of all or nothing. There's no granularity to it. And I think that is definitely people should wait. I actually I was not going to transfer from MobileMe to iCloud because I didn't want to give up keychain sync and preferences sync on the Mac. But there's so much functionality tied into your iCloud account, like reminders for location-based reminders only work with an iCloud account. When you start doing relationships, because with Siri on the iPhone 4S and with other stuff coming up, if I just say mom, it knows who my mother is, or boss, it knows who my boss is. And if you're using Exchange or MobileMe, that's very limited, but iCloud has, you know, fantastic support for relationships. So I kind of was forced to make the switch, so I'm all in on iCloud now as well, Seth.
Yeah, and you know, I've had MobileMe for years, and I actually didn't move my MobileMe account to iCloud. I just created a new one based on my Apple ID because I was kind of concerned that something would go wrong, and I wasn't really worried about having the space because I know that you get your MobileMe space in iCloud for I guess it's a year.
Yeah.
But I didn't really care about that. I kind of wanted it to just be like a smooth, fresh start. So I actually based it on my Apple ID and then created a new me.com email address. And I actually got like a better one than I think I would have had before. So the whole thing really worked out for me. And I have like a completely fresh start. And I'm just going to let my existing MobileMe just kind of ride off into the sunset, I guess.
Wither and die.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is just the beginning of this because, like you point out, Georgia, Apple has always been very good at serving the needs of a single user, but they have pretty much failed miserably from the digital hub to now to serve the needs of a family. And it'd be interesting to see if Apple actually improves that going forward.
Right. What do you think that they should add in, Rene, that they don't have already?
Like, it's tough to say because I understand why they're keeping things siloed. But for example, managing the photo stream between multiple users is just a nightmare. And even before there was iCloud, syncing was very difficult if you had multiple accounts in the family. Like even now, if you have an app account, your kid, if you're on the same app account, your kids, you'll be flooded with Smurf apps maybe. I don't know what the right answer is. I just know we haven't found it yet. I know that's a bit of a cop-out.
It just makes all of your genius, when you go back down to genius searches, totally messed up.
Gargamel and then productivity. Okay.
I will tell you this, though. I think one of my favorite new features is another one that I really liked on Android, where when you buy something, it is zapped everywhere.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's great if you want that, but when I go then through my music, like if it was like automatically that I get all the songs, I like the way that they do it now where you can kind of pick the songs that you have that you want. But if they just sent it to me immediately and I had 17 things of jazz out to stream through and deal with, I would actually like to
ABBA's greatest hits, downloading now.
Yeah.
I would be like, And the same thing with applications. I want to be able to take a look and say, you know what, I don't need that on my phone because I have almost no space as it is.
Well, you can just turn it off. I mean, you don't have to have the automatic downloads. It's optional. The thing that I will say, though, is that the photo stream for bloggers is fantastic because when I was doing screenshots for the walkthrough, I just kept taking screenshots and I just saw them populating in Aperture. Or interestingly, you can have photo stream active in more than one app. So if it's in Aperture, you have to turn it off in iPhoto and vice versa. But it just kept populating and I didn't have to email myself anything or paste bot anything. Every time I took a photo, it was on my Mac immediately.
Is that because it would be a battery drain?
No, I mean, it's a good thing. It's just fantastic. You take a picture or a screenshot, it's on your Mac a couple seconds later. No.
I mean for the applications that it can only be in one application.
I think they're not smart like Palm yet. Like Palm was very smart with Synergy where they would take all these streams, they'd keep them siloed, but they'd present either single or multiple views to the user. And I think Apple is still like one pipe, one end, one pipe, one end. And they haven't got a good way of abstracting that yet. So they probably think it would, pollute the stream if you had it open. But you have it open on an iPhone and an iPad and a Mac, so I don't understand what the problem is. Maybe it's still in beta.
Yeah, I think we'll see changes to Photo Stream. I'm hoping, because there's a little bit of room for tweaking and improvement.
So we have a lot. We spoke a little bit about Kindle being one of the next, competitors to the iPad. But there are a few others that are coming down the stream, and some that are going to be really, really cheap. I believe it's the Galaxy Tab that's also going to be like $199.
Oh, who knows anymore? Like a new discount tablet on something or other shopping network every day. There was another one yesterday, like $149 or something. I forget what they are. Some people are pumping out really cheap Android tablets now.
Yeah.
So do you think that and/or Ice Cream Sandwich is going to make a difference?
Ice Cream Sandwich is not going to be cheap. So the Ice Cream Sandwich is coming out mostly on phones. The interesting thing with Ice Cream Sandwich is that this is the big unification of their gingerbread phone operating system and their honeycomb tablet operating system. And it's going to be available for both phones and tablets. And the phones, of course, they're a huge success, massive market share, tons of devices, tons of carriers. The tablets have been struggling to get a lot of market share, but I'm not sure if Ice Cream Sandwich will really help. But it did look, Seth, correct me if I'm wrong, it did look a little bit saner, more unified, more consistent, and it looks like a better overall OS for Android tablets.
Yep. I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't watch any of this last night. I was kind of just following. Yeah, I was kind of following Twitter and looking at stuff and just basically kind of absorbing what people were saying. I plan on taking some time and going through this, the site coverage probably tomorrow because I'll have a little bit of time. But from what I'm gathering, it seems that this is a good update. It's definitely got some more design sensibilities thanks to our pal Duarte. Right?
Duarte, yep.
Yeah, and seems to be borrowing some ideas from other operating systems.
And fonts.
Mm-hmm. So maybe now we can all stop being such jerks to one another.
Can we all just get
There's
along?
two interesting things, Georgia. They switched from the old Android font to a new font called Roboto, which is based. It's not as bad as Arial, but it is heavily based on
Domo
Helvetica.
arigato. Sorry.
And so it looks a lot more like the iOS font. So the font on Android now looks like an iPad. The other thing that's kind of interesting is, and I don't know if this is really how we were meant to interpret it, but Andy Rubin said that there's not going to be tablet apps and phone apps. Because like right now, there's an iPhone app, and we'll do the double fuzzy chunky on the iPad if you really want. But developers are encouraged to make either a separate version or a universal version with a unique iPad interface to take advantage of that big screen, where Android apps are basically phone apps or tablet apps that scale up or scale down. And I'm not sure if that's brilliant or buffoonery, but we're going to have to wait a couple months to figure it out, I think.
So, Seth, the biggest competitor to the iPad still, you believe, will be Kindle?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And again, just to reiterate what I've said before, I don't think that the Kindle Fire is going to go at the iPad quite in the way that probably the media would like to stoke that fire, no pun intended. I think that it's a very different kind of device. I think Amazon is positioning it as a very different kind of a device. And I think that the entire use case for that device is, while it mirrors some of what people use the iPad for, the iPad is centered around apps and experience. And obviously you consume a heck of a lot of media on it as well. The Kindle Fire is positioned around media, and the apps are an afterthought, that you can run them, but by the way, here's all this stuff that Amazon gives you that you can buy, and it's tied into those services, and it's tied into that level of commerce. I think that it's going to be huge only because Amazon has both the marketing clout and the hardware chops to probably pull it off. And I think that it will probably be the only real quote unquote competitor in terms of selling stuff.
But PlayBook OS 2.0 was demonstrated yesterday, Seth, with Cascade from the Astonishing Tribe, and with every single way to develop on it except for turtle graphics and logo. I mean, it's going to have email. It's got it was the longest.
It's going to have email.
No, it was the longest presentation ever. Mike Lazaradis came off as Regis Philbin holding a gadget segment because he kept narrating everything. But they showed off really impressive technologies, a really good HTML5 support. Their POSIX kernel. This guy came out who does Qnix, who looked like he had like the Bill Gates posture kind of thing going on, but talked about the stability of their microkernel. It was an interesting show, and PlayBook 2.0. I mean, it could light the world up.
Man, you know my feelings on this. I want nothing more than for there to be actual good, desirable competition in the market. But my gut is telling me that it's just not going to come from RIM.
It's going to play Android apps, and Qnix apps, and WebWorks HTML5 apps, and Adobe Air apps.
Listen, I actually love the PlayBook hardware, and when I played with it, I really enjoyed it for the time I spent with it. And I would be curious to see what 2.0 looks and feels like, but it's
stuff
just
was hot.
Yeah, that company knows what they're doing when it comes to design. They really do.
I think that we spoke about it the first time, though. When you're at the second time at bat, people have already made a decision on whether or not they can trust you. And I think that since the first playbook was a little bit of a wah, wah, wah,
cluster something.
And I was actually really excited that for the playbook. I thought that it would, they would really put a lot of effort into it and make, a native email app maybe. So the fact that they really kind of made a huge miss on it makes me think, you know what? I'll take a look. I'll try it out.
Shy.
But
I was really close to buying one.
You buy everything though. You got big.
No,
I certainly.
No, I do not. No, I do not.
Now, did you think of buying it and someone talked you out of it, or?
No, actually, after we bought the Galaxy Tab, which I kind of got bored of kind of quickly, at that point, I was kind of like, wow, I'd really like something different that's not my iPad just to play with. And I was really, really going to get a playbook. And then the whole touchpad thing blew up and I got a touchpad.
Buys everything.
I do not buy everything.
Okay.
Hey, the iPad took a while.
Well, he still doesn't have an iPad too.
That's right.
So
Rocking
doesn't
a
buy
first
everything. He's
gen.
right. The thing that I thought interesting, though, is right around this time, the Apple working on a 7-inch iPad rumor came flying back to the foreground. And I'm just wondering...
Renee, we haven't even, like, the 4S is just on the market, and already the rumors for the iPad 3 are just hitting us.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if these Asian rumor sites are going to be happy until they've speculated about every single possible size for an iPad that Samsung already ships in an actual device.
3-inch iPad.
It's a nano, and then a 3.45, like in 3/4 of an inch increments. Steve Jobs really was adamant that the Apple did not consider a smaller screen size to be an optimal experience. That they wanted they thought it would be a big phone, which is what the original Galaxy Tab was like, and they wanted it to be big enough that you could make really different, really high order software. And he made a joke about having to shave down your fingers to use it. Now, of course, Apple also said they would never put video on an iPod and that they weren't going to make a phone. So you never know what's misdirection and what's real. But you got to imagine that Apple has at least tried. Like they had a 3-inch iPhone and a 5-inch iPhone. They had a 7-inch iPad and a 12-inch iPad, and they went with the ones that they thought had the biggest range of appeal, because they make their money by not making a lot of products, by making a few. You say this all the time, Georgia, by making a few so they can just get those components as cheap as possible and manufacture the heck out of them.
And there's really no reason for them to be trying to change up their product line. The iPad sells like hotcakes. No one's really in, like, the Kindle might change this, but there's no one really that's a close competitor to them besides themselves. So in the end, again, just like we discussed with the iPhone, the iPad, and the iPod, they would just be dealing with, taking away product lines from themselves.
With no clear benefit.
I don't see really much of a benefit, and a lot of cost that goes into, like, the development, the means, getting all the parts, and then trying to cram in all of the components that you have in a larger iPad, keeping the battery life and keeping the space for it. Doesn't really seem that it would be possible.
And the apps, because they said it'll be the same resolution, but at 3/4 the size, Seth, you can imagine the touch points, unless you make a whole other UI again, won't be optimal.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they've got things so entrenched with those two sizes that it's going to be... I mean, you could see it both ways, right? You could see it as a real sore spot for developers that now have to try to port their larger apps down or their smaller apps up, or, depending on how Apple positions it, which, of course, is what they're really great at, they could say, here's an entirely new platform, and you can really think through new interfaces. But I kind of don't think that's going to happen. I think that it would be more sore than happy, because I think at this point, iOS developers see a reason for a 3.5-inch screen and see a reason for a 10-inch screen, and probably have parked cars in either or both of those areas and are probably fine with it.
Well, you remember, like, Mark Edwards, who co-hosts Iterate with us, his first comment was that because Android is trying to support all these screen sizes, he's hard-pressed to find a pixel-accurate UI anywhere, and Apple developers and designers take a lot of pride in making a pixel-perfect version for the iPhone and a pixel-perfect version for the iPad.
Yep. That attention to detail is very much a characteristic of the platform. And, I'm not going to say that all Android apps are ugly, but, man, a lot of them are. And there's a reason for that, because developers have too many targets to hit, and they pick a couple and they hit them well, and then everything else, you can't get it everywhere.
Do everything. It's not.
Yeah.
And the user experience is what ends up being sacrificed because of that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to go through quickly. We have also daily tips, so you can take a look. It is how to turn on AirPlay mirroring, and we have a lot of tips that you can take a look at. So if you have any questions about iCloud, how to use Siri, how to set different things up, take a look at tippy.com.
iMessage, too. We got a lot of requests for how to use iMessage on the iPad, because now there is a Messages app on your iPad. You can text.
And we have how to set it up.
Yep.
And that'll just,
tips.
deal with it to your carriers.
Yeah.
We also have, for apps, we have Instapaper for iPhone and iPad goes 4.0, so you can take a look at there.
I put this in there just for Seth because he's a power. we're both. I'm an Instapaper user, but Seth is a Instapaper power user.
I love that app so much. I love it.
We actually got to talk to Marco for a while at Singleton, and he is just the nicest guy in the world.
He seriously is. As nice as you think he might be, he's even nicer and more endearing. And I told him I told him how much I liked this stuff.
And he is super, like, he
that's
sweats
awesome.
tiny little details about functionality and UI that I find really impressive.
Yeah.
Like whether a button is easier. Like Georgia, he will do something that, like, like sometimes you press the wrong button. He will actually pause and make sure that you meant to hit it before it happens. Or if you hit the thing to go back to the top, he has a function that'll say, well, wait, did you mean to scroll all the way to the top of this 30-page article, or did you do it by accident? There's a lot of thought put into his app.
Which is smart, because that drives me insane on my iPad.
Yep.
Does clicking something by mistake and then you have to reload. Kills me.
Great app, great developer.
We also have Grand Theft Auto 3 is coming to the iPhone 4S and the iPad 2. So anyone that wants to deal with your road rage dreams, head on over and check it out.
If you always wanted to stomp a fool, now you can do it in beautiful iOS fashion.
You can stomp them with your fingers.
There's so many. I mean, Liana is our app editor for Tippy, and she is doing a fantastic job with the deluge of iOS 5 updated apps. So you can just go to tippy.com/apps, and she is sorting them out and giving you the best of the best of the best.
Well, I think that we have covered all of our iPad news for this week, so I would like to thank Seth Clifford for joining us.
Thank you, Georgia. Pleasure as always to be here.
And how do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Seth Clifford. You could find me on the Tippy shows, on Iterate with Rene and Mark Edwards of Bajango. And if you'd like to check out our apps and our work and the sites that we build, please visit our website at nfidm.com. We're Nickelfish, and we recently relaunched the site, as I've been kind of talking about on Twitter and stuff, and we'd love it if you went and checked it out, because we worked really hard on it, and it took us a really long time, because
it's heroic, Seth.
We always put our needs behind the needs of our clients, and so it took us a super long time, but we're very excited about it.
Head on over to the site and see if you can find which one is Seth.
And then tell us why you think his hands are on fire.
Look for the guy who looks the most annoyed.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say powerful or strong, willful.
No, I'm not the most powerful. I'm not the most strong. I'm definitely the one who is the least impressed with your nonsense.
Seth Clifford has never found anything charming ever in his life.
Now I understand why you have the glowing, the fire fists.
Yeah, and if you, just as an aside, if you want to learn about all of the heroes, if you click on the About page and go into our little bios, we have like a real life bio, and then our alter ego bio is in there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'd also like to thank our co-host, Rene Ritchie.
Thank you, Georgia. It is always a pleasure to be here, even when you throw iPhone Live off the air and take back the iPad show, which you so richly claim as your own.
I'm very sorry. It just had to be done. And how do we find you, Rene?
You can find me on Twitter at Rene Ritchie. You can find me producing pretty much all the Mobile Nation shows now and co-hosting a lot of them with you and Seth, including iPhone Live, iPad Live, Iterate, Zen and Tech, Super Functional, Mobile Nations, just so many of them. But check it out, mobilenations.com and tippy.com, of course.
And I'm Georgia, and you can find me on Twitter. You can find me at GeorgiaTIPB, and also on the website, www.tippy.com. You can reach all of us at Tippy via email at podcasts@tippy.com, or leave a comment when the show goes up on the blog. Please leave a comment when the show goes up on the blog. Yeah, just do it. We're here every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. British Summer Time, and of course, our companion show, iPhone Live, Rene.
iPhone Live is usually in the Wednesday slot, same bat time, same bat channel.
And we're usually on Wednesday nights, of course, is iPhone, and Sunday nights is iPad. This one's a special one. For all our podcasts, including iPhone, iPad, Zen and Tech, Super Functional, Iterate, Android Central, Crackberry.com, and more, see mobilenations.com/shows. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave a rating. It helps people find the show and just makes us, less than 3U. So thanks to the Tippy iPad Accessory Store for sponsoring this podcast, and for everyone that showed up live to the chat. You guys are awesome.
Less than 3.